like we have a question. So the question, which is one I get a lot, is how long does it take to make lace? And the answer is that it really depends. So you can see my lace pillow here. This is a pattern from the earliest lace pattern book, Le Pomp, which was published in Venice in 1557, and the Met actually has an original copy in the Drawings and Prints collection. And this pattern takes me about 2 hours an inch to work, which sounds like a long time until you learn about 18th century Flemish lace makers now in Belgium who could spend up to 10 months working on a pair of cuffs, lace cuffs, working 12 hours a day. So really an incredibly labor-intensive technique. It's very time consuming. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little demonstration. So I'm not just flinging these around. What I'm doing is I'm actually crossing and twisting these right over left and left over right in a pattern following the design below. So now I'm going to fill in this little diamond area using some cloth stitches. So I'm going to cloth stitch with the gold and the yellow across here. And then I'm going to scoot these over and take the gold through the yellow. And essentially a cloth stitch is using 2 pairs of bobbins and doing a cross, which is left over right, and then twist, which is right over left, and then cross again. So then I will just repeat this process. Scoot these to the side and keep going. Oh dear, I've lost one. Just rewind this for you. This is all part of the process, thread management. And although you may be most familiar with seeing white lace in portraitures and that sort of thing, colors, multicolored lace like the Frisado de Valladolid was actually pretty common. So it just doesn't last as well, I suppose. But it was made in different colors as well. Looks like we have another question. So how did I learn to make lace? I first took a lace class in Slovenia, in the small town of Idrija, in 2012. And I immediately fell in love with lace. So through my alma mater institution, FIT, I got a grant to study lace making in Europe in 2015, where I traveled for 4 months and studied bobbin lace and needle lace at schools in Croatia, Slovenia, France, Italy, Spain, and Belgium. So just about all over the place. And I've basically been obsessed ever since. Now, as one of my duties in the Rati Textile Center, we're working to develop a methods and materials collection of textile tools so that we can use these to demonstrate for visitors when they come to the Rati Textile Center. So I'm just doing some tensioning here, and you can see that I made this little diamond shape with my threads. We have another question. So did men make or wear lace? That is a great question. I definitely talked a lot about women so far. And the truth is that men indeed, yes, they did both wear and make lace. Lace was actually a gender-neutral fashion accessory for centuries. And until the 19th century, men and women adored, wealthy ones who could afford lace adored to wear it. As far as making, it was predominantly a female industry. Unlike weaving, which was organized into professional guilds that were mainly made up of men, essentially, lace making was a domestic skill that could be made in the home to supplement women's incomes for their families. So some men did make it, however. In particular, English sailors, when they were not at sea, would make a type of bobbin lace called trolley lace. This was a bit of a coarser lace and a more affordable style that is still, you could make today. But you'll see if you go through the Met's gallery, we have men wearing lace in portraits all over the place. So we have another question, which is, do I have a favorite lace pattern? And I think that is a really difficult question. I'm definitely in love with the LePont pattern book from 1557 that I talked about, which is the Nation lace patterns. So I tend to make a lot of things from this. They are relatively fast, as I said, 2 hours an inch is pretty fast for lace. So I can get a lot of mileage out of them. But at the moment, I'm learning to design my own patterns, and so I'm working in that direction as well. So I don't quite have a favorite yet. So we have another question, which is, what is the difference between bobbin lace and tatting? You'll notice I talked about bobbin lace and needle lace today, but maybe you've heard of tatting. And you're familiar with that. Well, I find that the reason a lot of people have heard of tatting is because it's used as a clue in crossword puzzles as an answer to make lace. People often have tat in crossword puzzles, so people are more familiar with that. This is a theory, so I'm not certain of this, but it seems to be the case. So essentially, tatting actually developed later than bobbin and needle lace in the 19th century, and it's made with a little shuttle. It's a knotting technique using 1 or 2 balls of thread, so not as many threads as bobbin lace. Whereas in bobbin lace, there's no knotting, actually. You're interlacing. So it's a different structure of the textiles. So we have another question, which is, how much did lace cost? And that's another one that is really difficult to answer. Essentially, lace was very expensive. It was a luxury textile. Some people made it for themselves, which made it more affordable. But additionally, it was kind of, in my perspective, one of the most costly textiles ever made in history. So it was very luxurious and available only to the wealthiest members of society. One example of this being Empress Maria Theresa of Austria in the 1740s had a full bobbin lace gown made for her in Brussels lace technique, which is a very high-end part lace technique out of Belgium. And this dress cost the equivalent of 750,000 euros today, so really, really expensive. That is a rare example, and this is why there are very few lace garments that were ever made historically. Usually it was just an accessory because it was too expensive to make a full garment out of lace. So just to talk to you a little bit more about the Rati Textile Center, We are typically, as the storage facility, we are also open to the public for research appointments. This is, of course, not the case at the moment during the pandemic, but hopefully will be again soon. So we have a long tradition at the Met of welcoming researchers to our study rooms from not only affiliated institutions, but also students and other groups like hobbyists of different textile techniques. So we are hoping to open to the public again someday in the future and welcome visitors back to our facility and our study room. So if you're interested in textiles, keep that in mind in your next visit to New York City. But we are by appointment only, so. And now I'm doing some braiding. So this is a 4-strand braiding technique. So unlike the 3-strand braids that you would do with your hair, this is done with 4 strands of braid. And this lace pillow is similar in shape, you can see, to the one that we saw in the portrait by Nikolai Smias. It's sort of this typewriter shape with the bolster or roll at the top here that you can make a continuous piece of lace off of. But this lace pillow was actually purchased not in the Netherlands, but in Le Puy-en-Velay, a small village in France, which has had a lace-making tradition for almost 5 centuries, I believe. So they're still